Tanse, I'm Kitselas. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. Aaron Chuck Gamble's remains were found in a garbage bin in Saskatoon in March of 2023. Saskatoon police have since deemed his death as suspicious. They have made no arrests but say there are still 3 suspects that need to be identified. Now Gamble's family is speaking out, hoping that someone will come forward with new information.
He was our male figure in our life. We had our fathers, but we had Chuck, and Chuck was always there.
This is Silver Okamesim, Aaron Gamble's stepdaughter.
We have our assumptions of who they are. You know, we went forward. We told the lead investigators who I guess you would say, assumed who it was.
Okamesim says she ran into her stepdad on March 23rd of 2023 at Dodgy's, the local gas station at Beardy's and Okamasas Cree Nation, northeast of Saskatoon, not knowing it would be their last visit together.
He was waiting for a couple people for a ride, and he said he was on his way to Saskatoon. And that's the last time I seen him.
On March 24th at around 12:15 a.m. in Saskatoon's Meadow Green neighborhood, 2 surveillance videos from an apartment show 3 people wheeling a large container to a dumpster in the west end of Saskatoon near St. Paul's Hospital. In the video, the 3 suspects stop what they're doing when a cab is seen dropping someone off up the street. One of the suspects appears to be dancing while waiting. They then grab their belongings and leave on foot with what appears to be some kind of dolly. Saskatoon police says Gamble's body was later found in that dumpster and foul play may be involved.
That was just a very disturbing thing to witness, and for them to leave him like he was nothing, it hurts.
Police are now asking for the public's help in identifying the 3 suspects in the video. In a statement emailed to APTN News, a Saskatoon Police Service spokesperson wrote, "SPS continues to investigate this 2023 homicide, but we do not have any public update to provide at this time, and it remains an active investigation." Gamble, who is from Beardy's and Okamasas, was a father of 7 children and a grandfather of many more. He obtained his teaching degree at the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon and taught in Montreal Lake, Cumberland House, Loon Lake, and Beardy's and Okamasas.
He raised us. Like, he was the reason why me and my sister got our education, because he always reminded us all the time, education is so important. It's going to take you so much further in life.
Gamble is remembered as a kind-hearted and gentle soul who loved his family and community. He lived with diabetes and struggled with addictions before his death. Emilia Grey Eyes is Gamble's sister.
It's been trying. It's been tough. The waiting and being patient is a lot to take on.
Okamesim hopes the people in that surveillance video will come forward.
They know who they are, and let's just hope that they have the heart to tell us one day.
If anyone has information that could lead to an arrest, you're asked to contact the Saskatoon Police Service or Crime Stoppers. In the city with the highest urban Indigenous population in the country, the riding of Winnipeg Centre is also home to the highest percentage of Indigenous voters. It's one of 36 First Nations swing vote ridings identified by the Assembly of First Nations and is the home of APTN headquarters. Our reporter Sierra Bettens gives us a closer look and speaks to some of the candidates looking for your vote.
Many different peoples, and we seem to come together in a mosque, for example, or a bingo hall. Like there's very many different places that we come to interact, and it's really beautiful to see.
From art galleries to community organizations to APTN HQ, Winnipeg Centre is the heart of the city, and its MP, NDP incumbent Leah Gazan, has her finger on its pulse.
It's no secret that Winnipeg Centre is one of the poorest ridings in the country. We are a dynamic community, rich with ideas and commitment, and it requires an MP who actually lives in the riding, who works with community, and I hope to be able to do that after the election is finished.
According to 2021 census data, the riding has an Indigenous population of around 18.3%, over 3 times that of the rest of Canada. An Indigenous MP has held the riding seat since 2015, when Cree Métis Liberal MP Robert Falcon-Ouellette came into office. Since taking that seat in 2019, Kazan has secured funding for dozens of community-led initiatives and implemented the Red Dress Alert pilot for MMIWG2S.
Support from the NDP, it's why we have a Red Dress Alert system. It is our party that provided support for me to even, push forward and receive unanimous consent to recognize what happened in residential schools as an act of genocide.
6 candidates are running in the Winnipeg Centre electoral district. Donald Grant, a member of the Saugeen Anishinaabe First Nation, is running for the People's Party of Canada. Grant says the PPC's commitments to Indigenous peoples includes replacing the Indian Act, respecting the Constitution and treaties, and expanding on reserve property rights.
I would like to see is these cards here. So when you go to any gas station, you go to any food store, whatever, to scan this card or make it a strip where you're no tax at no matter what store you are in Manitoba.
At 23 years old, Liberal candidate Rahul Walia's resume includes interning under the late Senator Murray Sinclair, co-founding a social impact fund, and working in the Ministry of Transport.
Obviously, I'm a young person, and seeing what's been happening with rising cost of living, housing shortages, and inaffordability, these are issues that affect young people quite greatly.
If elected, he wants to advance housing, expand Jordan's principal funding, and ensure youth voices are heard.
We have to talk about, housing as an act of Indigenous reconciliation, making sure that there are wellness centers and community-based housing programmings that are meant for Indigenous folks, but also on the national and provincial scale, investing in their communities back home.
The riding's Conservative and Green Party candidates were not available for an interview by airtime. Winnipeg Centre is one of 36 First Nations swing vote ridings identified by the Assembly of First Nations. Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
We now want to tell you about this week's new web poll question. Over on our website, we ask, how much influence will the federal leaders debate airing later this week will have on your vote? Your answers are a lot of influence, some influence, none at all, I'm not planning to vote. Have your say by going to aptnnews.ca. The poll section is on the right-hand side of the homepage. Federal party leaders will square off this week in back-to-back debates, and APTN News will be there to bring you extensive coverage of both events. First up is the French language debate, which will air tomorrow. You can watch that live right here on APTN. Nouvelle Nationale d'APTN will also provide in-depth analysis leading up to and following that French debate, led by our host Kim Sullivan. That pre-show will get underway on Wednesday at 7:30 Eastern Time. Make sure to tune in. At the same time, it will also air on APTN languages in Inuktitut for our people in the north. The French language debate will also air again on Thursday on APTN languages in Innu and Eastern Cree. And then on Thursday, you can watch the English language leaders debate live on APTN at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Dennis and I will be live at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, right after your APTN National News. We'll be joined by Pam Pometer, Jennifer Lewitz, and Cam Holmstrom to queue up the debate. We'll also have a half-hour post-show following the debate at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And our APTN Languages channel will present the show in Plains Cree at the same time. The English language debate will then re-air on APTN Languages in Inuktitut and Anishinaabe. The Kitselas First Nation, located on the James Bay coast in Ontario, has declared a state of emergency this week as spring flooding threatens the community yet again. In a statement, Chief Hosea Wesley said the most vulnerable band members are already being evacuated. Evacuation flights are also being organized to take another 250 evacuees to Timmins, with more details, including departure times, to be posted as soon as it's confirmed. Every spring, the Kitselas First Nation is impacted by flooding from ice breakup on the Albany River, uprooting and forcing hundreds of residents to relocate until the water subsides. The federal government has promised to relocate Kitselas, a community of 2,000 people, to a new location by 2029. And the Niskandaga First Nation in Northern Ontario has also declared a state of emergency due to flooding. On Sunday, water was reported coming through the walls of the local healthcare facility. Chief Gary Kitselas says people in the community now have no access to healthcare. Both Indigenous Services Canada and the province of Ontario have been notified and are working with the First Nation. Niskandaga is a fly-in community about 400 kilometers northeast of Thunder Bay. More than 16,000 people have died from toxic drugs since BC declared overdoses an emergency nearly a decade ago. Marking the anniversary on Monday, British Columbia's First Nations Health Authority emphasized that it is not the time to pull back on harm reduction. CTV's Ben Milger has that story.
On the front lines of the toxic drug crisis, people gather in Victory Square, mourning the lives lost and calling for change.
He knew that everyone deserved dignity and compassion and respect.
At the age of 60, Jamie Richardson died from toxic drugs just last month.
I'm here today to honor him and to stand with the community about the epidemic that is going on with the toxic drug crisis, stealing our relatives, our loved ones, our communities away from us.
9 years to the day since the province declared the toxic drug crisis a public health emergency, it has claimed more than 16,000 lives. People like Jerry, who left behind a wife of 24 years.
There's so much stuff in the drugs nowadays, right? And it happens so fast.
Indigenous people are nearly 7 times more likely to die from toxic drugs than non-Indigenous people. The chief medical officer of the First Nations Health Authority wants people to remember each person who dies is more than a statistic.
The numbers do not tell the full story of the lives lost or the impact to the families, friends, communities, and nations in the aftermath of these deaths.
She is calling for more supervised consumption sites and better access to safer supply.
It's important to ensure that people stay alive. People who use drugs have access to harm reduction services, and most importantly, that they have a point of connection so that they get the supports that they need.
9 years into the declared emergency, so many continue to mourn lost loved ones.
Rest in peace to my dad. He was the best, and he did not deserve to die due to toxic drugs.
Ben Milger, CTV News, Vancouver.
A First Nation in northwestern BC is moving away from the Indian Act. We'll tell you more when we come back in about 3 minutes. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Kitselas First Nation in northern British Columbia has voted in favor of a self-government agreement. In a press release, the First Nation said more than 96% of their eligible voters cast ballots in the ratification process last week. 85% of them voted yes. The First Nation says it will no longer be controlled by, quote, Canada's Indian Act, and will implement what they are calling a treaty where citizens will vote in their own elections, receive treaty benefits, and exercise their rights and run for elected office. The First Nation has been in treaty negotiations with BC and the federal government since 1993. Kitselas First Nation is located about 1,300 kilometers northwest of Vancouver. After more than a year of protests by environmental and Indigenous advocates, the Manitoba government announced its plans to save a forest from property development on Monday. The Lemay Forest is located in Winnipeg's St. Norbert neighborhood, a historic area known for the Red River Métis settlements. In the first half of the 20th century, the location was home to a Seal Risho, an orphanage and home for unwed mothers. Around 1,200 to 2,300 children died there during its operation, and unmarked graves are said to be located on the grounds. The issue sparked outrage by community members when the property was purchased by Tochal Developments to construct a 5,000-bed assisted living facility. Some trees have already been cut down. Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew said the government plans to purchase or expropriate the land from the owner and make it a provincial park. He says the paperwork still needs to be filed.
There's been a lot of talk about this having a role in Indigenous history. I went down the Lemay rabbit hole. I don't actually think there is a definitive link to prove that that we know there are Indigenous folks here, but we do know this is a cemetery, and so it should be dealt with the respect that would be accorded to anyone's cemetery in Manitoba. And so that's why the province is taking this step. There are conservation interests, there are these historic cemetery interests, there's the public interest in the end. And we have exhausted a bunch of other potential remedies, and this is the one that we're arriving at now to serve the public interest.
Meanwhile, Winnipeg police say a 39-year-old woman was arrested at the site prior to this announcement during a demonstration to save the forest in the middle of more tree cutting. She is said to have been interfering with authorized employees and is charged with contempt of court and mischief. Our final game of the season for APTN's Hockey Night in Canada in Inuktitut aired on APTN this past weekend. Here's a recap of just how special the team's work is.
Harley Dallas Kunut. Amisulo mata. Itatitiala poitatiyo. McDavid.
NHL hockey liritidluta Inuktitut tanna ihumagin na kimagaptigo Robert David uvangalu tanna pidlo aviu himalak makovehu cheme laupugu.
Mananaw naksititaw mataitatitiyo. Dallas Kunut.
Tamneila hockey liribluta Inuktitut tu luaktu tallu tanna kovegi cheme lauaptigo. Inuktitut tu luakluta amma hockey meuqaw hiqaqtu luakluta tamnegila kovena langukman.
Namana taitatiyan laqattaqtu galui. Arwa koitatitiyo sivullermi asuilak utuinami sivullertinu angayaqaya Brady Kachak itatitiyallakpo.
Ikping na lang mangotam na Inuktitut diluta hockey meuqaw hiqaqtiluta inoqatititnu amma ukiok taktumin. Agbanipigya kalaw kimagap ta March mitang kayawtin ni Adjinitaw takutitaw himalagap ta amihunik.
Not outside of my mata. Arwa ko na ugyaribut. Jolila itatitiyo miyo.
Takukaw talaktiluta hockey liriyuyu no amihunu tawtuktaw lilaw kimabugut.
We understand how important it is, how cultural of an institution it is to Canadians all across the country, both in the city centers and in the rural, more remote locations. How and why is this so important to the community from your perspective?
I believe it's really to encourage and strengthen our language, to be able to showcase our language to the country and all over the world, to be able to show how relevant it is. We can use it for any kind of media out there, not just for hockey, but we also have things like movies, TV shows. There's so many parts of it that we want to help encourage our young people to be able to apply it to whatever they want to do. And really fortunately, one of my dreams was to be able to do this, and now we're doing it for a hockey night in Canada.
Checking the dog, Brad. Oh, do I mean to you, New Jersey? Good. See what the Maculated in Martha Canada. See what the Tino Angayakaya Nuni. It is the Jellecto.
Haki mahuk pugut ama ko yalil larik pugut ako haki me ukaw hekak tulo agap ta Inuktitut atong dugo.
Tiguyaw yo kang narangata ko akirari yangit. Akiniluk takmat aten na tiguyaw kayaw tiguyaw yo kataw nakman.
Inuktitut ang mitakutit sibugut kayuhin ng nakmat. Amma piyu mi huk titsigwak luta hibunik kaptinu. Koyan na may waklo ta ilapti no koya limaklo ta Inuktitut ng mit ilinak titolok himagapta atok tulok ti gublo. Robert David uvam ni APTN milu koyan na may pu ilipi ni tagayak tulo alaw ka piwap tinig.
Indigenous women have a new venue to show off their new artwork in Manitoba. That story when we come back. Stay with us. Starting on the East St. John 0, Charlottetown 8. Inuktitut -3, La Grande River 4. 7 in Quebec City and rain, Montreal 14. Windsor 10, Sault Ste. Marie 1. Sunny in Sudbury at 2, Wawa -3. Norway House -1, The Paw 0. 0 in Princess Harbor, Dauphin 3 and sun. Regina partly cloudy and 4, Saskatoon 9. Meadow Lake 10, La Ronge 3. 10 in Grand Prairie, Peace River 10 as well. 21 in Lethbridge and rain, 19 in Calgary. Vancouver 13, Kamloops 18. 5 in Dease Lake, Smithers 9. Mayo 5, Dawson 7. 10 in Fort Simpson, Yellowknife 3. 0 in Fort McPherson, Colville Lake 1. Minus 15 in Whale Cove, Chesterfield, minus 17. And minus 14 in Clyde River, Agulik, minus 18. Thanks for staying with us. Indigenous women were recently given the opportunity to showcase their work at the Prairie Thunder Art Exhibition in Brandon. Our reporter Tyler Shingu spoke with the curators at one of the artists from that exhibition from Winnipeg.
The Prairie Thunder Art Exhibition opened last week and featured around 20 different works from 8 Indigenous female artists with ties to the prairies. Stacey Kusel, a co-curator, shared what inspired the title, noting the raucous laugh of Michelle Sound, an artist featured in the exhibition.
Whenever I hear it, I think of my aunties, and I think of my aunties who have passed, and these sort of inspirations of these role models, these sort of sources of strength and power in the life of Indigenous women. This is who the exhibition is an homage to, the mothers, the aunties, the grandmothers, and the kinship that gives us strength and power.
As the exhibition featured women, the theme throughout was kinship, with focuses on mother-daughter relationships. Michelle Sound shared what she brought to the exhibition.
One of the series is a drum series called Every Photo I Have of My Mother, where I printed cyanotypes on elk hide drums, and it is every photo I have of my mother. She passed away at the age of 30 when I was 10, and so it was about that connection with her.
Marianne Redhead is Prairie Thunder's co-curator.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on. There's like a lot of, there's performance, there's beadwork, there's textile photography. So there's a lot going on in there. So if you have the chance to make it, it's a treat.
Prairie Thunder will be running until June 7th at the Art Gallery of Southwestern Manitoba in Brandon. Tyler Shingus, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Thank you, Tyler. And that's your daytime newscast for this Tuesday, April 15th. Dennis Ward is back for your evening newscast in a few hours. Please join us then. From our reporting staff from across the country and from our HQ in Winnipeg, thank you for watching, and we'll see you again. Exe.